Fighting games are hard. There's no two ways about it. There's a lot that comes with learning a fighting game. There's learning your character, neutral, Oki, frame data, combos, all that good stuff. But there's one thing I think people don't talk about at all when it comes to these games and learning how to improve. Specifically, that's how to lose. Believe it or not, losing can be a skill that you develop, and all the best fighting game players know how to do it. Even if you're not aiming to be the best, developing the skill also helps you have fun with the fighting game. So I want to talk about developing the skill of losing to help you convert losing games into winning matches. Specifically, I also want to shed a light on how well Street Fighter VI contextualizes loss and helps players build a narrative for themselves. The question of getting good at a fighting game isn't necessarily where you place in a tournament or how difficult the combos you do are, or anything like that. Instead, the question you should be asking is, what is strength? I think World Tour Mode's opening is actually really important. It's corny, sure, and it feels maybe out of place in the opening of a fighting game story mode, but I think it's the most important part of the story, aside from the parts that you actually play. The actual story of World Tour Mode is pretty ridiculous and all over the place, but the main focus of it isn't actually the narrative Capcom is telling. Many fighting games like Mortal Kombat and Tekken have long-running stories with plot beats that intersect and come together to form these massive tapestries of details and plot points. Street Fighter has that too, but in 6, there's another focus on the journey of the player. As you fight, you learn new techniques, new special moves, and overall just how to navigate through the game better. It's all really cool stuff, but time and time again, characters will ask themselves or ask you, what does it mean to be strong? What does that mean to you? And this very question is not only the core of the game's story, but it's the core of the player's story. What are you here to do? You're playing a fighting game because competing in some shape or form is appealing to you, but how do you know once you've reached your goal?
That's it! So, you want to prove your strength? It's all about taking that first step.
If you want to learn how to grow from losing, this is the first step. You have to define what your goal is. Tell yourself what it means to be strong. Being strong could just be beating your friends when you get together, or it could mean getting a certain rank online. It could even be winning a tournament, big or small. Having that goal just helps you contextualize everything that happens leading up to reaching it, win or lose. For Street Fighter VI specifically, I know a lot of people feel robbed when they lose to players on ranked who might be using modern controls, but you gotta realize, if you want to be strong with classic controls, those who are winning with modern really shouldn't be any concern to you. Your goal is to learn classic and theirs is to learn the game with modern. Nobody is robbing anyone, and everyone is playing for a different reason. The modern control experience is just as valid as any other, and it opens up the fighting game journey to so many people who might not experience it otherwise. Deciding what your goal is isn't necessarily just the first step, as it might change and develop as you get situated in the game, but it is important, because as you progress through a game, the next step is going to pop up, and it's gonna sting.
What's wrong? That all you got? Nobody ever got strong without losing. Don't lose hope.
Losing is part of any competitive game, but for some reason in fighting games, it feels different. Maybe it's because there's no teammates to blame the loss on, or it's because there's knowledge you didn't know about an obscure character, or whatever else it might be. But when we get down to it, it's an inevitability that comes with playing the game. So what do we do when we encounter loss?
So that was a tough loss. How do you feel after that?
How the fuck you think I feel? Don't ask no dumbass questions.
I mentioned before that World Tour mode encourages players to define what strength means to them, and in doing so, the game creates what's called a ludonarrative harmony. Ludonarrative harmony refers to the narrative told in a game's story and how that resonates with the narrative told through the gameplay. I don't think many fighting games have nailed this as well as World Tour has in recent times though. The story is about your character growing stronger and learning from others who have found and defined their version of strength. Through them, we learn that the journey for strength is ongoing, and even those deemed strong are still on the hunt for more to learn what it means to really push themselves and grow beyond their previous limits. Playing a fighting game is exactly this experience. There's always so much to learn, and the skill ceilings in fighting games are some of the highest around. The creators have gone on record saying that they aimed for World Tour mode to be an introduction for players to fighting games that eases them into what's to come after single-player content. So, what does this have to do with losing? Well, throughout World Tour, there's lots of interactions with characters who have experienced loss. They go into detail and tell the player how they felt and what they chose to do in order to keep moving forward. We learn a lot about these long-tenured and newly established characters through these tidbits, but I love how so many of these conversations are directed towards the player. They're not speaking to the character, but to you directly. They want you to know that you will lose, but that's exactly what it's all about. If you never lose, you never challenge yourself, and you won't grow or learn. Obviously, it's not about reaching master rank for everyone, but once the goal is set, everyone's got something to fight for. Once you do lose, there's a few ways to use it to your advantage, and Street Fighter 6 has features built directly into the game to help with that. First off, there's a feature after a ranked match that allows players to jump straight into training mode against the character they just lost to. It's a convenient feature that I hope gets more use in this game than it did in Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter 6 has tons of things to make training mode easier for players to train against other characters, like variable delay on timings, and even baked-in special inputs and commands to make things easier on players who might not be familiar with certain techniques. There's nothing less frustrating than having to learn the wake-up timing for a character with a charge reversal if you've never used charge motions before. Secondly, there's a neat feature hidden away in CFN's replays. Well, it's not hidden, but I know most people won't truly understand it or see it at first. The first tab of replays shown are recommended replays. These replays are generally of matchups that the player has lost recently, but they show off instances where your character actually won the matchup, and the players shown are usually around the same rank. So not only can you now rewatch your own replays where you can improve, Street Fighter 6 literally just gives you footage to review that might show you exactly how to phase out your own mistakes. Even while just watching replays on CFN, the game continues to help you learn. Frame data can be displayed while fighting, which is an easy way to spot frame traps, set play, or mix-ups that have hit you in the past. And to be fair, Street Fighter 5 had this feature as well, but in my opinion, it was nowhere near as clear to read or even understand. Lastly, there's one more thing I think gets overlooked in this process of contextualizing loss that I don't think any fighting game has provided to the extent Street Fighter 6 has, and that's access to the community. Not only is there crossplay with all platforms from Street Fighter 6, but you can also message people through an in-game chat. This might seem like a given feature in a modern game, but most fighting games do not have this. I've made so many new friends in the last 2 weeks through this feature for Street Fighter 6 and learned matchups that I struggled with. Most times if someone was on PC and I was on PS5, I'd have to just hope they'd accept my Discord friend request in order to ask them questions about the matchup. But now, I can just do it right in the game. All three of these features create an atmosphere of natural growth to cater to anyone's goals. As long as you're hoping to improve, losing doesn't have to be the end-all be-all. Not that it ever was, but this makes it so much easier. And moving forward, there's the final part of this whole process.
Now you know history.
Congratulations. You have defeated me. And now what? What does this victory represent to you? Justice. Strength. The end of something. Or the beginning.
Winning might seem easy to define, but victory is a bit harder. We can win matches here and there, understand a matchup better than we did before, or finally reach that rank that we've been striving for, but what happens when we're there? The hardest part, I think, of fighting games isn't reaching a goal, but rather figuring out what to do once you've achieved it. Everything you were striving for, the strength that you hope to achieve, what happens to those things once you've actually got your hands on them? For other games, you can beat the story and then pretty much put it down. You could go hunting for all the achievements and try to perfect a game or finish the world map, but eventually, you put the game down. Fighting games, though, are the games that keep on giving. If your goal was to reach a certain rank, maybe then try doing it again with another character. If the goal was to place top 8 at a local tournament, why not aim to win the whole thing? Maybe you could even try to land that impossible combo you've only ever seen someone do in training mode in a match. There's so much to do in fighting games, but more importantly, you can control every bit of what you want to do. On Twitter, I've seen a sweeping mentality that people are bored of Street Fighter 6 and they're ready to put it down until we get updates. Everyone's entitled to their opinions, obviously, but blaming things like game mechanics and scrubby players or balancing for your disinterest in a game that's just over 2 weeks old more likely means that you haven't explored what's fully there. I think there's two things that could have happened to these players. Either they personally just don't click with the game, which is fine and totally happens, or they stopped trying to explore what was there because their goals didn't align with how they were playing the game. If their goal was to hit Diamond rank, well, Street Fighter 6 rank doesn't work the same way it did in 5 at all, and the goal might not have hit the spot they were hoping it would. For example, I've already got 4 or 5 characters in Diamond in Street Fighter 6, and it took me like 3 years to hit that rank in Street Fighter 5. I've grown as a player, but placement matches also make it incredibly easy to literally start at the goal I had. When I found that out, I was a bit bummed, but then I realized that just meant I could try to get all the characters I was interested in to Diamond, and then I was having a lot more fun in the lab and Battle Hub matches. But the same can be said about not achieving your goals as well. In Street Fighter 5, I wanted to hit Master Rank before Street Fighter 6 came and replaced it, but I realized the way League points worked at higher level really didn't gel with me. In Ultra Diamond League, you fight a lot of Diamond players, which is cool and fun, but the problem is, if I were to win a set against them 2-1, I'd still lose a total of like 5 to 15 points. This meant that I was literally being punished for winning sets online, and at that point, as Honda, I realized Master Rank was more of a grind than anything else, and I left it alone. I value being able to adapt to my opponent and winning a set overall, not just running sets over and over until I eventually reach a certain rank. So to contextualize my goal with what I valued, I changed it to be getting out of pools at EVO 2022. And long story short, I did it. That was my first major tournament, and it was a lot of fun grinding sets at NLBC, asking people better than me for advice, and making friends along the way. A victory only feels as good as how bad you want it. So make sure you contextualize your goals in line with what you deem important to keep the motivation there and press on to whatever your next triumph will be. All in all, I think this message applies to more than just Street Fighter, but it's something I really do find important in learning a fighting game specifically. The you lose screens are hard-hitting, and not much is worse than feeling helpless to stop your opponent from mixing you and just kicking your ass. But one thing I'm sure anyone has noticed is that the true competitors take those ass whoopings in stride. They use it as fuel to wake themselves up and do the work that really needs to get done in order to improve.
まずは時戸選手から一言お願いします。
ゲームの中でぐらいは勝ちたかったんですけど、 また出直してきます。
It hurts at times, and the journey never truly ends, but for the taste of sweet victory along the way, it's all worth it. That's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
今日ほど格闘ゲームやっててよかったなと思う日はないですね。めちゃくちゃ嬉しいです。本当にその毎日一日も欠かすことなく練習してきて、それがやっぱり結果につながるっていうことってなかなかないと思うんですよ。そんな中やっぱり運にも恵まれたとは思うんですけど、こういう一つの大きな結果が出たっていうのは日々の取り組み方のすごい自信がつきますよね。これをもとに今日から帰ってからまた練習しますんで、プレイヤーの皆さんよろしくお願いします。